Welcome back, everybody. Time to continue this Victory at Sea Pacific U.S. campaign. And right now I'm looking at Truk Lagoon. Remember, if you saw the last episode when we left things off, I had just taken this major port at Truk Lagoon. We'd suffered some losses down in the South Pacific that we're going to rectify here very soon. But in the meantime, I'm looking at Truk Lagoon, and we just have this massive amount of air power that we're going to be able to put onto this island, and includes a lot of fighters, but also some B-24s, B-25s. So we're getting all of those constructed. That's going to take a little bit of time. We're going to get all of our carrier-based aircraft replenished, get everybody ready to go, because we have a big carrier fleet from the Japanese that we've got to go deal with. And right now they are just outside the Marshall Islands, so they're actually behind me. So I'm going to have to keep a decent presence at Truk Lagoon, but with all of those planes, once they're built, I should be able to defend the island against most attacks while I send most of my carriers over to try and deal with this big fleet. So that's going to be our goal for today's episode, I think, is to take care of that, and we'll start thinking about moving forward to Guam and Tinian. While we're at Truk Lagoon, we can also work on upgrading some of our existing ships that are docked there. In particular, I'm looking at our Lexington class carriers, the Ioana Buyer and the Pillar of Autumn. So let's go ahead and get them upgraded with advanced radar and the latest technology in anti-aircraft. We're also building an Independence class light carrier and a couple of Cleveland class light cruisers there. So it may be a little bit before we get out of there in the Caroline Islands. In the meantime, I'm sending a task force to try and take back the one Aleutian Island that I lost. And you can see here the Truk Lagoon has basically no supplies, so I can't really refuel, refit anything until we get some ships there to deal with that. Alright, so I've gone around to all of my ports and done the same thing. I've upgraded all of the planes, and so right now all of my ports are in the process of replacing their planes, so they're going to be kind of down for at least a little while we do that. But that's going to allow me to start maybe sending out some nice level bombers to deal with some of these, some of the smaller fleets that don't have the ability to put fighters up into the air. You know, some of these level bombers are flying at 10,000 feet or more, and the anti-aircraft fire is just really not going to do anything to them. But it's also going to be pretty difficult to hit a plane from that distance. But we can start maybe reaching out to some of these places like Tinian and Guam. I would assume we'd be able to hit them from there. Who are we spotting here? 5 subs, so that's a problem because they're going up against some of my cargo ships that are headed toward the Marshalls. I'm now in the process of upgrading all of my flights on all of my carriers as well. It looks like we're replacing a lot of the earlier fighters with these new F4U Corsair fighters. So that's going to give me some upgrades on all of my carrier flights that should hopefully help. We've got a Japanese tanker coming in here. I think the planes on Truk Lagoon, once we get them upgraded, ought to be able to go out and deal with them pretty handily. But we're still waiting on some of those. Alright, we're in the process of scouting our Aleutian Island back. We've got the USS Washington, the Baltimore, and the J.A. Morris down here. They're currently actually shelling that position here in Komondorski, but primarily we're just trying to scout it so that we can go ahead and do the amphibious landing to finish it off. It looks like there's some kind of a tanker ship here, or a cargo ship here at the moment. Honestly, I don't want to destroy too much of it. I just want to take it back. And we're at 26% towards scouting, so we already destroyed the couple of enemy ships, the torpedo boats that we're here defending. There's really no defense at this point. Alright, so Carrier Group A had upgraded all of their planes, so we went ahead and sent them out to destroy that enemy fleet that was trying to resupply. I'm not sure where they were headed. They were probably headed to the Solomons, it appears. So that's one less set of supplies that he'll be getting. We're going to look for opportunities like that, little things we can do while we wait for everybody to upgrade. We can still be impacting the war. I can see that big enemy fleet appears to be headed right toward Midway. So we're going to have to probably get moving sooner rather than later to deal with them. Alright, our Task Force 44 is starting their landing. at Komandorsky. I don't know where those planes. Oh, that's a plane from Komandorsky. Okay, I was getting a little nervous that there was a weird Japanese carrier fleet roaming somewhere in the Bering Sea, but I can see now that's not the case. Let's see what we're dealing with near the Caroline Islands. 6 destroyers. That's the perfect kind of target for Carrier Group A to take out while they're headed toward Midway. Alright, so not only do we have these 6 destroyers headed toward Truk Lagoon, we also see 5 cargo ships, 2 ammunition ships, probably also headed toward the Solomons. So let's go ahead. I'm going to pause for a second. I want to hit these destroyers with everything I've got first. And then after we deal with them, then we'll go after the cargo ships. Hopefully we don't lose too many planes in this process, because we need these planes for the attack on those carriers. We could always swing by the Marshall Islands to get everything repaired in the meantime, but I'm afraid at this point I'm not going to catch up to that carrier fleet before it gets to Midway. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. I'm guessing we'll take out all 6. Yep, all 6 of the destroyers are gone. While we're at it, let's go ahead and issue orders to take out these guys. And then we'll turn right back around and start heading back toward that fleet. Alright, great news. We have taken back the one and only one Aleutian Island that had been ripped from our grasp early in the war. And so we'll probably go ahead and keep, at least for now, we will keep the small fleet of ships up there, Taskforce 44, which we will now go ahead and park for the time being. And if anything happens to sneak up our way, we'll be able to deal with them. In the meantime, let's go ahead and continue the process of taking out this resupply cargo ship and ammunition ships here. We're going to take them out, and then we're going to immediately turn this carrier groups back once again toward Midway. And they're going to be joined by the Saratoga task force, which now includes the USS Princeton. It's a pretty decent sized task force, got a bunch of destroyers in it, so they'd be able to take on subs if they saw them as well. But we are headed for 4 carriers, and we're going to take at least 5 toward them. Okay, I'm going to have to admit I'm a little stumped by this one. But I guess it's true what many people have been telling me, which is basically that the enemy cheats on this game, that he will just spam carriers faster than you can sink them, and that absolutely is true. I believe we have sunk at least 7, maybe more, Japanese carriers already. And of course we knew about these 4 here. 4 carriers, 2 battleships, 2 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, 17 destroyers. But look at what's headed toward Wake Island. Another 18 destroyers, 2 light cruisers, 2 heavy cruisers, 2 battleships, and 4 carriers. So suddenly, within striking distance of Wake Island, there are at least 8 Japanese carriers, along with something like 40 other escort ships with them. That's a lot, even for the 6 carriers and then some that I've got headed in that direction. So we suddenly have a choice to make. Do we go after this group that's headed toward Midway Island, or do we try and intercept this one first? I think we're probably going to have to go after the one that's headed toward Wake, and hope that we have something left over to very quickly refit at Wake Island and then go after the other one. This is going to be fun. Okay, Marshall Islands have 6 destroyers headed their way, so they're sending out an Avenger along with several B-25 Mitchell bombers. So it'll be curious to see how those do against these destroyers. In fact, I'd like to see that for myself. This will be my first time seeing B-25s in action in this game. Okay, so the B-25s were coming in at 3,500 meters. That's obviously way lower than they could actually fly. They could go in significantly higher than that, but probably a low chance of hitting target at that altitude. So we're going to give them the best chance possible. I'm still not entirely sure how well a B-25 is going to be able to hit destroyers with bombs, but we're going to give it a go and see what happens. We've got the dive bombers going in first, so we'll see what they do. Oh, here! Oh my gosh! Our B-25s are already dropping their bombs, and it seems as though they dropped them way out in front. But maybe they know something I don't. Seems like that would have been a nice juicy target if we'd have been on target, because they're all right next to each other. Here come the bombs. Oh, they were... Oh, dude, nice! They all went on one destroyer, but we lit that guy up. That was probably overkill. I guess we probably could have spread those out a little bit more, but nicely done, B-25s. That was definitely overkill. But we know they can do the job, so that's good. Boy, there's some good news. We filled out the last XP, and we now have the Boeing B-29 Superfortress level bomber available. That is huge. The Empire of Japan has not accepted our demands of surrender. The United States military has been authorized to use our new super weapon. Collect the atomic bomb components from Mare Island. Okay. Well, we don't have the Indianapolis to do that with. That's who historically did that, because we lost the Indianapolis the last episode. But dang, we've got the atomic bomb available to us now. So that's kind of huge. And we also have B-29s, which is probably even more important. We've got 7 carriers right in here, plus a light carrier, the Princeton. That should be more than enough to deal with this fleet. So let's prepare for that. Okay, Truck Lagoon will be our first location for building the B-29 Superfortress. You can see service ceiling 9,700 meters, range 2,800 nautical miles, 310 knot speed. They're tough. They've got 8 damage on their bombs. Oh man, these are fantastic, and we're going to build a bunch of them there at Truck Lagoon. We'll eventually build them other places that we're able to as well, but that's going to be the first location. Alright, the battle for Wake Island begins. He's got a whole bunch of dive bombers heading into Wake Island. I don't have a lot of fighters there at the moment, but I sure as heck do on these carriers. So let's go ahead and start with, we're going to start with, oh boy, I don't know what happened there. We had a little glitch. We're going to start with the carrier Taskforce Saratoga. We're going to send their fighters up. Get them up and get them attacking these dive bombers. We're going to start sending our fighters out from carrier group A and B. Group C is still a little further behind, but we've got a whole bunch of fighters available to us, and they're just in range. We've also got, okay, that's 36 fighters from Saratoga Task Force, so that ought to be able to do the trick. And if we wipe out his 45 dive bombers here right off the bat, that's going to set us up for being able to go after that task force. Alright, it's going to be our first chance, I believe, to see the Corsairs in action. Not entirely sure why they're turning away. Oh, we got more coming, that's why. Sometimes difficult to watch all of this happening just because of the way these things move around. But the bottom line is, I think all of these valves are going to be getting wiped out. These Corsairs ought to be able to fly rings around his valves. So I don't know if we're running out of ammo here or what, but let's take a look at the bridge view and see how many of them are left. He's still got 15 back there. Man, I think he must have sent 60 dive bombers total. So this will be interesting to see how many we're able to take out before they get there. So I'm just going to watch from here. It's a little easier to see what's happening. My only concern is that we run out of ammunition before we're able to take them all out, because we didn't intercept them sooner, but it looks like... Oh yeah, Saratoga Taskforce reports it is low on ammunition. Please tell me Wake's got... They do. We're just going to have to park at Wake to get some more. We took out a significant number, but there's still a lot of dive bombers here. So I have a feeling they're going to be doing some damage to Wake Island's defenses. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what happens. We've got a lot of AA here. I mean, it's not a huge deal if he does damage to Wake, although I'd certainly prefer that he didn't. But I've got a lot more fighters coming. They're just not in range yet. Alright, let's continue. So there, he's hitting my coastal guns. That's fine. And we're definitely going to intercept these guys on the way back, even if they do get in here. Let's go ahead and see what these other guys are up to. You got my fleet right over there, the Saratoga fleet. And I'm totally fine with the fact that these guys are hitting Wake Island instead of going after my carrier. Alright, so we took down a few of them. The important thing is we're going to be able to hit these guys on their way back. Or at least I should be able to. But what I really want to do is take on the fighters from those 4 carriers. I've got to be able to deal with those fighters. But we'll see if we can intercept some of these dive bombers on their way back. Let's go ahead and speed up time a little bit here. I don't want any of these dive bombers to make it back to their carriers. I want to see all of that red disappear. So he sent somewhere between 45 and 60. I don't know for sure if it was 4 squadrons of 15 or 3. But if we take out all 60 of those, that'd be huge. That'd basically constitute all of his dive bombers. So here comes some fighters. And we were expecting that and looking forward to that. In fact, I want to remove his fighter cover so that I'll be able to send in my own dive bombers and deal with them. So I want to get rid of all this red here. It's just easier to watch the fight this way. Alright, Wake sent their dive bombers, and I'm not crazy about that because now what's going to happen is they're going to run into his fighters. Lots of red disappearing in here. So now we're running into his fighters. It looks like I probably lost some, but I think we've done pretty good. Alright, we intercepted, I think, something like 15 Japanese fighters in here, took all of them out. You can see now he's sending out a massive wave. He's got fighters coming toward my carriers. He's got fighters going this way. And he's got what's left of his dive bombers headed toward Midway with a few fighters for escort. That's perfect, because this is going to be our chance. Just like we did way back at the beginning of this game. This is going to be our chance to win air superiority over his fighters. And once we take out his fighters, then we have an open road to go after this huge Japanese fleet that's got, what, 28 ships, including 4 carriers and 2 battleships. So I'm going to try to swarm everybody on this group of fighters here and wipe them out. and then we can turn around and deal with these other ones here. I think if we do all this right, and you know what, honestly, I'll let his dive bombers do their thing over here. We can pull the Saratoga Taskforce to try and deal with what he's got left of his dive bombers. Because if we wipe out all the rest of these fighters, he's going to be pretty well... He's got 10 more over here. And we'll get these guys probably coming back from Wake, and that's fine. But by the time my carriers get in range, and by the time Carrier Group C is even in range to launch their planes, we may have already pretty well wiped out the planes of these 4 carriers. So I'm just keeping an eye on things. I want to make sure here that the Vals are going after Wake Island and not after my carrier. I don't think these cruisers and destroyers are going to get in close enough to be able to fire their own anti-aircraft. But this is a nighttime attack. I'm not entirely sure how successful they're going to be. And we've got some Corsairs on their tail. Go. So I love the fact that we've got Corsairs diving in behind them. That's kind of awesome. And it looks like these dive bombers, whether or not they get their bombs off, they're not going to survive this attack. For the most part, so far, Wake Island has survived pretty well intact. You know, he's hit a few things, a couple of my coastal guns. That's really been about it. Okay, so at this point, we're looking at 10 more Japanese fighters over here. And we're going to overwhelm those numbers. And now we've got... Oh, I just unlocked the Plane Killer achievement, whatever that is. We've got these dive bombers headed back. And we're going to start intercepting them with some fighters. These 10 fighters are going to be gone. There were 6 and 4. The question, of course, is going to be, once we've wiped out his fighters, how many do we still have? Let's take a look real quick at each of my carriers. Buyer has lost a couple of planes, but no squadrons. Pillar of Autumn has 2 squadrons of Corsairs, so they've lost 8 planes. That's really not that bad. Assuming that the losses are similar on Hammond. Okay, they've lost quite a few fighters. And Essex has lost a few, but you know what? For the most part, considering how many Japanese planes I've taken out, we're looking pretty good. So I think this episode is going to end up revolving around us taking out this carrier fleet and then refitting at Wake before going after the other one, which is probably going to be hitting Midway by the time we get there. Who do we have arriving at Midway? We've got Taskforce 54, which is 2 light cruisers, Taskforce 48, which is the South Dakota and the Monaghan, so we will have a carrier there. But one carrier, boy, I don't know. In the meantime, let's go ahead and upgrade our flights at Midway. So we're going to be building some B-29s there. And it looks like 1 fighter is going to limp back along with 1 dive bomber. So let's go ahead and recall all of our flights now, and then we're gonna sit tight with Carrier Group A and B while we let Carrier Group C catch up, and then we're gonna launch dive bombers from all of them, along with from Wake Island, and just do a massive attack on this fleet. Okay, so his carriers are actually out of range of mine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send my fighters. There's 11 fighters coming this way. I am going to send my fighters to just east of Wake Island because by the time his fighters get there, they'll be in range. So we've got a big group of fighters headed that way. In the meantime, we're still waiting on Carrier Group C to get up here. Once they get up here, we'll launch all of our planes and try to wipe out that fleet before we turn our attention on this one. All right, he's thought better of what he was going to do there. Alright, so here's what's happening. We have Now we've got to watch because we've got the Saratoga Taskforce over here as well. And we probably want to at least get a combat air patrol going over the Taskforce. But we are going to intercept his fighters from over here. And we've got 87 dive bombers, followed up by, we still have 40 torpedo bombers on Carrier Group C. We haven't upgraded those yet. So massive strike force headed there. Hopefully we're going to deal with his fighters from this carrier force. We start taking out those fighters, then we remove his protection so we can go after that group as well. Alright, looks like first is going to be our interception of these Japanese fighters. There's a whole bunch more coming this way, but the nice thing is they're kind of piecemeal, which makes it a little easier. Wake Island's going to send some fighters up. Let's go ahead and scramble the Saratoga and her fighters. Get them going over in that direction. We've also got a few fighters on the Princeton, not many. So we can go ahead and send them up. And as that's happening, we're going to prepare for our first strike on the Japanese fleet. So let's go ahead and head into combat over there. So as we get into this big attack, just by way of history, according to militaryfactory.com, and I'm assuming that this information is correct, there were a total of 18 Japanese aircraft carriers built throughout, or that were in service during World War II, going all the way back to the Akagi, which was built in 1927. And then, well, no, there were some even earlier than that, Hosho in 1922. I don't know how many of those were sunk. I'll try to find that information as well. But that includes light aircraft carriers, you know, escort carriers, things like that. A total of 18. Once these battles are done, we will have sunk, I believe, 15. I can't remember if I've sunk 7 or 11 carriers going into this. But I know it's a substantial amount. So let's go ahead and look, and you can see we've talked about the fact that it reuses names. Not only that, but it sometimes has the same name of 2 carriers in the same fleet. So we've got 2 Shokakus here. Actually, we've got 3. So I don't know if that's just the classes that it's going with. And there's another Zuikaku. We've sunk a couple of those already. So let's go ahead, and there's the Yamashiro Battleship. Let's go ahead and unpause. It looks like we just lost sight of them. But again, I'm not going to give any particular orders. We'll just let our boys do their thing. Although I'm a little concerned that we're going to hit only a couple of ships because we're going to go after a couple rather than a lot of them. So maybe I will give orders here. I don't know. Looks like it's freezing up a little bit. This is a really big fleet, and maybe the game doesn't like that very much. I don't know. It seems rather glitchy today, and this game does that from time to time. I'm actually going to pause here because this is a big group of Helldivers. I really don't want them all hitting the same carrier. Okay, here we go. So we're going to watch from down here. It's just easier to do that than to watch all of the Helldivers going in. I've got all 4 carriers targeted. Now granted, the carriers are probably not that much of a threat to me at this point, but they still represent his main source of power. And we're going to take them out first, and then we'll come back and deal with all the smaller ships. We'll go after the battleship. We'll start going after the escort ships. I really want to sink all 4 of these carriers. So we got hits, but it doesn't appear, well, okay, now it's showing some damage. It's really, really glitchy because of how many planes and how many ships we have going here. I think we just about sank that one. We might not have sent quite enough power. I sent three squadrons at each of these carriers, and it looks like we're also hitting some other ships as well. We hit the Yamashiro, that battleship. There's 2 of them. So yeah, it's really hard to follow because it's glitching really bad, which is kind of disappointing because it doesn't seem like it should be that graphics heavy, and I've got a pretty decent computer here. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to pause for a second. I don't think we sank any of them, but we did some significant damage to all of them. So the next crew that's coming in ought to be able to finish them off, or at least go after some of the other ships. Okay, so next going in, we've got 28 torpedo bombers, 30 more dive bombers, and then another 12 torpedo bombers behind those. And we'll see what happens here. 17, 2, 2, 2, and 4. We'll see if they actually take anybody out. Now we've got a major fight going against a bunch of his fighters. We're going to see if we can clear the path for going after this other carrier group. I'm probably going to have to park up at Wake Island and try to replace my planes before I go after that carrier group. Let's see what's happening. We took out a battleship. That may be all we do here. And I'm expecting a lot of those torpedo bombers will get taken out. So we've still got 4 heavily damaged carriers. We did sink a battleship. More importantly, we're taking out fighters over here. Wow, please tell me that we didn't lose everybody but one dive bomber. I'm hoping the other ones are just hiding behind this, because there's no way that I lose 50-some planes right there. Well, it appears I did. So that's what I get for trusting the AI to handle that attack on its own. You can see here, Hammond's basically out of planes. Essex has lost quite a few, but not all. Carrier Group A, Yuanabuyer's doing alright, but that was from the first attack. It was Hammond's attack that pretty well got wiped out. Pillar of Autumn's lost a lot too. Lexington lost quite a few. Hornet lost quite a few. So unfortunately, I'm not even sure how much I can go after this fleet anymore without replenishing my planes first. Okay, as I've issued orders for everybody to head to Wake, we may have to let these guys go and focus on the other one for now. We're sending everybody in to get refit and get their planes built back up. We've got about 30 more fighters right in here that we've got a chance to take out. And remember, I've got a base here where I can go in and get more planes. He doesn't. Once he's out of planes, he's out of planes. At least till he gets back to a naval base. So let's try and wipe out as many of these 30 fighters as I can. And it looks like I'm going to do just that. There's 10 of them right here. Some of them are going to get back, but these 10 for sure we're going to take out. Okay, so we're sending in our first attack against this other carrier fleet while I still have my carriers headed toward Wake. So I don't have that many planes, but the nice thing is I can replenish whatever I lose. So I figure, what do I have to lose? Let's go ahead and send an attack. Maybe we get lucky and take out some of these guys in the process. So you can see 17, 2, 2, 2, and 4. So let's see what, if anything, we're able to do. And I'm gonna just let this attack play out for now, because I know this won't be the attack that finishes him. And I hope we just don't lose a massive amount of planes again like we did on that last one. Let's hope we can actually take some guys out here. So far, nothing. I'm just going to trust that we've actually done some damage. Good night. Are you telling me we haven't taken out a single guy? Okay. Let's at least take a look and see if we've done some damage. So from what I can see, it looks like we just about took out this Kaga carrier. But I don't see anything else that has suffered any kind of damage, at least among what I can see. There's another Hiryu here. He hasn't really taken any damage. Did a little bit of damage to a battleship, but man, largely ineffective. Okay, so he's officially begun his raid on Wake Island, which basically isn't amounting to much, but we did finish off that one carrier. You can see now the Soryu, Hiryu, and Kaga feel like they keep recycling the same couple of names, but I've got my carrier groups all now parked or nearly parked at Wake Island, where they're going to replenish their planes. You can see here, here's the You Want to Buyer. Her planes are pretty much intact anyway, but Pillar of Autumn has a lot to get replenished, so we're going to start doing that. We're going to get them into port at Wake, and then we're just going to probably start launching attacks on the fleet as soon as these planes are all replenished. Alright, so just as all this is going down and we're hopefully about to take out these other 3 carriers and the rest of this fleet, lo and behold, a third one of these big Japanese fleets with 4 carriers, 2 battleships, and miscellaneous other ships is showing up here, heading toward my recently reacquired Aleutian Island. So that means there are 12, at least 12 Japanese carriers, along with 54 destroyers, 6 light cruisers, 6 heavy cruisers, and 6 battleships that have all gone out in these 3 fleets. I don't know where he's getting the funds for this. So it's definitely true what people have said, that basically the enemy just spams fleets regardless of whether or not he should be able to afford these fleets. So we're just gonna have to keep sinking them, I guess. So we're trying to get refit right now, and get my fleets replenished with their aircraft, and then we're gonna go out and just decimate this fleet right here. Alright, so here's the status of that enemy fleet. We've launched a few more raids on it. We've taken out all but one of the carriers, and that's the Soryu, which is heavily damaged. So he's the only one left. I want to hit these other battleships though. As soon as the last carrier sunk, we're just going to go after every single one of these ships. I don't want a single one of these ships to escape. So that's kind of the plan. He's trying to get away as quick as he can, but we're pursuing with all 7 of my fleet carriers along with an escort carrier that I've got in the area. Alright, so we took out the last carrier. I'm going to send my task forces back to Wake Island just to kind of get replenished. I'd like to go after those other carriers if I can, but the most important thing for me right now is making sure that I've got everything kind of squared away, and we're waiting on some additional fleets back home that are being built in San Diego and other places. Looks like some of them just came off the line, so to speak. The Hornet's ready to go. So we're going to get another couple of carriers going, and I'm going to wrap up right there because that was a lot, even though it was kind of not a lot of action, but a lot happened. We've got to get this atomic bomb taken out somewhere to where we can use it. Let me know your thoughts about all that. Where would you go next? Since we know there are still 8 more carriers at least out there, I am gonna finish replenishing these guys, pursue that other carrier group, and hopefully take out the entire fleets, not just the carriers. But let me know your thoughts, use the comment section below, and we will be back with another episode in a couple days. Thanks for watching.